Good morning. How's my sound check here? Is it, you can hear? All right, great. Well, welcome to you all on this, I don't know about where you are, but where we are is a gorgeous spring day here. The sun is shining. It was cool last night. It's warm in the daytime. Perfect weather for the spring. Well, welcome to Hokyoji's Sunday Dharma Talk. I'm Carl Hultman. I'm the executive director down here. And this morning we have Reverend Myo-O Habermas-Scher is going to be speaking to us. And she practiced with Katagiri Roshi from 1975 until his death in 1990. She also trained for 12 years in the Vipassana tradition. She received Dharma transmission in 2012 from Dokai at Hokyoji. Myo-O is a master movement teacher and teaches somatically based vocal training. In 2021, she retired after 14 years as an interfaith staff chaplain at the University of Minnesota Medical Center and the MHealth Fairview. That's what I have at MHealth. She's also a mom and a grandmother to two little grandsons. So, Myo-O, welcome.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, good morning, friends. It's good to see your faces. It was good to see you in person last Saturday. Congratulations, Dozen. Very, very happy about your ordination. So today I'm going to talk about movement. The name of my talk is What is Moving? So this is from Albert Einstein. You know what? I think I should turn on a light. Just 1 second. That's better. Okay. So this is from Albert Einstein. We are slowed down sound and light waves, a walking bundle of frequencies tuned into the cosmos. We are souls dressed up in sacred biochemical garments, and our bodies are the instruments through which our souls play their music. And he was a violinist. You probably know that. So I want to talk about the non-duality of movement and the movement of non-duality. Zen is known as the school of direct experience. A direct knowing or realizing of the non-dual is our inclination. It's an embodied practice, embodied. As the Buddha taught in the Satipatthana Sutta, we know the body in the body. In acting, moving, motoring, the binding cord of the misconstrued self falls away. So I'm passionate about the movement as a practice of awakening because that's been my main practice for my whole life since I was 5. At 7, I started taking creative dance classes. And at 10, I studied ballet. Later, I made choreography and danced professionally with the Modern Dance Company. I studied flamenco and Mid-Eastern dance. I practiced yoga, tai chi, qigong, martial arts, as well as contact improvisation. And still now, I practice interplay, which is a structured movement improvisation form, and I study gyrotonics and Feldenkrais. So in and among all these forms, I studied experiential anatomy called body-mind centering with Bonnie Bainbridge Cohn, and I began studying Zen just a few years before I studied experiential anatomy. Before Buddhist practice saved my life, dance saved my life. It gave me discipline and passion for investigation and perseverance. It required consistent practice and a learning the self in a very direct and often challenging way. Eventually, it taught me to investigate the construction and deconstruction of the structure of the body and the non-separation of body-mind. It's endlessly impossible and wondrous, and in practicing it, the doors of awakening sometimes have opened. One incredible dancer named Luli Santangelo from Argentina once told me, if you want to make something real, it is agony. Agony. Sometimes our practice is like this too. We want to know the real, and it requires a great deal from us. So there's a famous teaching story, which you probably all know, from the Mumonkan. In the Zen world, these stories are called koans, as you know. They're parables, statements, or questions. They cannot be understood by our usual rational methods. And so when we wrestle with them with our whole body and mind, they become an intuitive key with which to open the lock of our painful misunderstanding of reality. So this one is number 29, and it's called Not the Wind, Not the Flag. Two monks were arguing about a flag. One said, the flag is moving. The other said, the wind is moving. Huineng, the sixth patriarch, happened to be passing by. He told them, not the wind, not the flag, mind is moving. Mumon's comment. The sixth ancestor said, the wind is not moving, the flag is not moving, mind is moving. What did he mean? If you understand this intimately, you will see the two monks there trying to buy iron and gaining gold. The sixth patriarch could not bear to see those two dull heads, so he made such a bargain. The capping verse is, wind, flag, mind moves, the same understanding. When the mouth opens, all are wrong. And here I am opening my mouth. It's kind of ridiculous, but so Buddhist practice includes everything, and it also includes, therefore, a detailed investigation into exactly how perception is constructed. And then it releases the bondage of the construction. So why do we care? I mean, this is very detailed work, but we smell the taste of the smell of the ocean. We have that smell in our being, and we want to be intimate with that freedom. We can feel that there's something, because there's binding, so there's freedom. So these guys in the koan were doing a good scientific research into cause and effect, but they were actually stuck on the same side of the argument. They weren't free. Then Huineng came along and pulled the rug out from underneath them. What is moving? He shouted. How do we discern what is moving? We discern what is moving by realizing that there is no subject or object moving. And we learn this by moving. So here's another story about the same koan. It's a different story. So this one is about Myo-O, who was living around 880 CE, who was a disciple of Yangshan. It brings the waking up moment into view. So I'm going to actually read some of this. Let's see what page. Yeah. Okay. This is in Zen Women by Grace Shearson. It's really great, I gotta say. All right. Once, Myo-O was working in the administrative quarters, and 17 monks on pilgrimage from the Shoku district came to see her master, Yangshan. They wanted to climb the mountain right away, but it was late in the evening, and they had to spend the night at the administrative quarters at the bottom of the mountain. At night, they began to discuss the famous story of the sixth patriarch and the wind and the flag. One monk says the flag is moving, one monk says the wind is moving, and the sixth patriarch says, the flag is not moving, the wind is not moving, you are moving your mind. All of the 17 monks gave their respective opinions, but all were off the mark. Myo-O, on the other side of the wall, overheard their discussion and said, "It's a pity that the 17 blind donkeys have worn out so many pairs of straw sandals on pilgrimages and still cannot even dream about the Buddha Dharma." A little later, Myo-O's male attendant told them her response to their discussion, but none of them were dissatisfied or resentful about it. On the contrary, they were ashamed at their lack of attainment of the way. They straightened up their robes, offered incense, made prostrations, and sought her instruction. She said, "Please, come closer." But before they could come closer, she shouted, "The wind is not moving, the flag is not moving, the mind is not moving." When they heard that, all of them reflected on their own hearts, then bowed to her in gratitude and became her disciples. Soon after that, they returned to Seishu without even visiting Yangshan. Truly, Myo-O's level is not surpassed by the 3 stages and 10 saints, and her actions are those of one who transmits the right stream of the Buddhas and patriarchs. Okay. So she saw that the monks were wallowing in dualistic analysis, and she set them up to directly experience what moves by asking them to move. "Come closer," she said. And in that breach between her instruction and their initiation of the movement she required, she tossed out the sword. Wind doesn't move, flag doesn't move, mind doesn't move. What moves? In that moment, their habitual response was broken, and in mid-movement, they had a direct experience of life's continuous and all-pervading movement. So I'm going to talk now about the sensory motor loop. I'm kind of analytical in my own strange way, and I love to correlate what happens in an awakening moment with the scientific analysis of the construction of perception. Because science so far is based on a view that sees body, mind, self and other and world as separate. It doesn't go far enough to alleviate great suffering. However, it can illuminate our own analysis of what is happening in the chain of moments we call our experience. Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, who is the founder, the facilitator of body-mind centering approach to body work, in her article called The Action in Perceiving, writes, movement is a perception. It is the first perception to develop in the womb, actually, and therefore is the most important for survival. Each experience sets a baseline for future experiences. Movement helps to establish the process of how we perceive. And how we perceive movement becomes an integral part of how we perceive through the other senses. And we, here, practitioners, will include the mind as one of those senses, because we study the movement of the mind, and its refinement is our practice. She goes on to say, there is sensing and there is perceiving. Sensing involves the stimulation of the sensory receptors and the sensory nerves. Perceiving is about one's personal relationship to the incoming information. Perception is how we relate to what we are sensing. And that perception, how we relate, is a lot based on our conditioning. So I just want to talk about sensing in Zazen. That's what the Buddha was talking about when he said, we know the body in the body. So it's not intellectual, analytical, separated. It's actual sensing the movement in the body, knowing it moment by moment. So the sensory motor loop is a template that describes how we respond to stimuli. Because in her research, Bonnie discovered that movement is the first perception, she realized that motoring, the activity of moving, is essential to expanding our capacity for choice and freedom. It is the motor ability to choose which aspects of incoming stimuli we will absorb or attend to. She calls this pre-motor focusing. And she says, in ourselves, we can see this pre-motor focusing as motivation, desire, attention, and discriminating awareness. So in our practice, we can call this virya, or energy for practice, also known as practicing with our hair and fire. She names the more refined sensory motor loop that she discerned like this: preconceived expectation. So we could say that's conditioning. Pre-motor focusing, that's that space in which Myo-O interrupted our habit. And then sensory input, perceptual interpretation, motor planning, motor response, sensory feedback, perceptual interpretation. Okay, so she claims that this pre-focusing phase is a motor act. I think that's so interesting. You know, it's like when you go to hear the orchestra and the conductor, before he goes like this, he goes, there's this sort of suspension, right? Where everybody pre-motor focuses together, and then he breathes in, and then, okay, so that's the motor act, is that before everything happens. It's the active decision of what stimulation you will take in. Normally, this active decision is unknown. You know, it's unconscious, it's unknown, based on previous experience. So it is exactly at this point between preconceived expectation and premotor focusing that Myo-O jumped in and threw the 17 monks a curveball. Her motoring at just the right moment cut through their conditioning, and mid-momentum, she broke their sensory motor loop habit, and their assumption of a continuum of self fell away. I just think that's so cool. And there's lots of stories, where the monk goes to see the teacher and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden the teacher goes, what? Or something. That's the same thing. I don't know. That one guy, what's his name, who he closed the door on his student's leg and broke it. I wasn't really fond of that myself. Okay, where am I? Page 5. Okay, so just as in the 12-link chain of causation, we interrupt the step between feeling and craving with awareness, and we stop the chain's inevitable cycling. Miaoshin's skillful action inserted itself into that space for the monks, and their wheel of causation broke, if momentarily. So first of all, they were very sincere, and they had a lot of humility, because Miaoshan was a young nun, and she was like the secretary at the bottom of the mountain, filling in all the who came and do we have enough rice and all that stuff. And she had a lot of confidence in her awakening, and she heard them through this thin wall. And when they found out she had something to offer them, they bowed and asked for help. So they were very sincere. So I think very sincere and having humility must be a requisite to being able to receive having the rug pulled out from under you with joy. Yeah. I need a bumper sticker that says I'd rather be dancing. I know there's some that says I'd rather be fishing, but the fishing is good though. Fishing is wonderful. Right now, I am speaking about non-dual moving, which is kind of silly, but this is a koan for me all the time. The movement of speech, which is constantly trying to reify concepts as real, is my koan. Like, what do I do with that? I want to share with you, to end, is a quote from the Avatamsaka Sutra, book 33, The Inconceivable Qualities of the Buddha. All Buddhas, abiding in the pure realm of reality, know all things originally have no names. There being no name of past, present, or future, no name of sentient beings, no name of inanimate beings, no name of country or land, no name of non-country, no name of law or non-law, no name of virtue or non-virtue, no name of enlightening being, no name of Buddha, no names of sets, no names of non-sets, no name of birth, no name of extinction, no name of existence, no name of non-existence, no name of unity, no name of variety, because the essential nature of things is inexpressible. All things are without location or position, cannot be explained as assembling or dispersing, as one or as many. No verbalization can reach them. All words fail. Though the Buddhas speak in various ways according to conventional usage, they do not cling to anything as mental objects, do not make anything up, and avoid all false conceptual attachments. In this way, they ultimately reach the other shore. Because movement is our first sensory experience, the felt sense of movement, its embodiment, has the possibility of bringing us directly in touch with Buddha nature. It is our first language beginning before we were formed and continuing through the time of our birth until we die. Embodying this study includes awareness of more and more subtle movement of mind, and experimenting this way, we can come to embody these words. Because the essential nature of things is inexpressible, all things are without location or position, cannot be explained as assembling or dispersing, or as one or many. No verbalization can reach them. All words fail. But something doesn't fail. What does not fail is the full blooming of life in each moment and the joy and inspiration of that crucial discovery. This cannot be grasped in our habitual ways of perceiving. And and I was just reading this quote from the Avatamsaka Sutra. I thought of, I think it's in the second verse of Genesis, about there's no form. There's no form. There's just like wind. There's wind over the water, no form. So that's pre-motor focusing of the universe. So that's all I have to say this morning. And I'd love to hear what you have to say or what you're wondering about.
Any questions for Myo-O? Comments? There's a lot to unpack there. So anyway, anyone?
Mary.
Oh, thank you so much about talking about moving, Myo-O. That's fantastic. Thank you. Because I have felt, since I've really started to become more and more a practitioner of Buddhism, and have struggled with sitting for really any amount of time, but love moving, especially walking and hiking, and in previous years running, moving. So I have felt guilty, like, oh, I'm not really a practitioner, a good practitioner, because I can't sit very well for 40 minutes. I did read, I've been reading books by Thich Nhat Hanh, and I'm not sure, I can't remember which one, but he was the first, I think, author that mentioned movement, like walking, like it's okay. Like you can meditate by walking. He has such a beautiful way of just sort of accepting, whatever it is, you can meditate. So I felt like I kind of got a little bit of permission from Thich Nhat Hanh. And but I want to say, when I was a kid, and you brought this up too, when I was a little kid, in my household, although it was a loving household, there was a lot of confusion, and for me as a kid, because things that were happening in the household, there was no open dialogue about.
Mm-hmm.
And because there was a lot of shame there. Shame on my mother, who has suffered with terrible depression, and a lot of a lot of confusion for me as a kid. And when you said, painful misunderstanding of reality as a kid, I didn't understand what was going on. I observed what was going on, which confused me and worried me and made me sad. But the only thing that I got some relief with is to be outside in my neighborhood running. So I ran and ran and ran and ran and played and ran and ran and ran, and it was an absolute joy and reprieve from a confusion of reality that the adults in the household didn't know how at the time to talk about.
Yeah.
So I appreciate so much presenting, movement. And I think as a kid, I was awakening to something else by just being free. And at the time, parents didn't care where the heck you were. You just come back at 6 for dinner when the bell, when the whistle went off or whatever. Nobody cared where you were.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You're welcome, Mary. And I want to invite you to consider that Zazen is moving. It's there's a lot of movement in Zazen. It's subtle compared to running all over the neighborhood, right? So I just want to throw that out there. Julianne, oh wait, Carl, did you? No, you
Let
haven't.
Juliana go.
Oh, okay, Juliana.
Hi,
Hi.
I am very, very new to Buddhism. As in this is, I think, my second time I've ever been at any sort of Buddhist practice. And so just gonna say a lot of this is over my head. But I appreciate like looking at perception and looking at how the mind works, because that's how I'm trying to figure that out for myself and how my mind works. And so I don't know, I like that little puzzle of perception and action, and I can't really explain it, but I like that introduction to it, so thank you.
You're welcome, Juliana. Yeah. Carl.
Yes, I'm going to lower my hand. I just wanted to mention something to Mary, and I don't know. I've heard people that have practiced in the Thai forest tradition in Thailand, they do very little formal sitting meditation. It's almost entirely walking meditation. There are paths out in the woods, and they go out and they walk. They don't sit, they walk. And that's, one of the basic things. Well, it's a different tradition. It's not the Soto Zen is all about sitting, but there are other traditions, but walking is the deal. I always thought that was interesting, that they did very little sitting meditation. They did a ton of walking meditation. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thanks. Very interesting talk, Neil. Thank you.
Marilyn. Oh, there you are. Oh, you have to unmute.
You're muted.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Great.
There you go.
So first of all, Juliana, I've been hanging around this stuff for quite a few years, and we're all just where we are. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. Myo-O, I might have to listen to the talk again to absorb some of it, but a phrase that I think you used was pre-movement focusing. Is that right?
Yeah, pre-motor focusing.
Pre-motor focusing. Well, hello. Now, when I heard that, And if I understood a little bit of your talk, I thought maybe the key, the secret in that gap was our practice of Zazen.
Exactly.
That kind of cuts that just for that moment in time. And maybe then we can string a second moment in time. If we're really lucky, it's 3. But we can kind of, to me, the way I'm currently thinking about Zazen is that what can I do? I can go beyond the dualistic concepts into my being at the present moment, and that will cut the chain of reactivity and dualism. And when I heard your phrase pre something or other focusing, I thought, that's it. That's Zazen. Now,
Good.
tell me if I'm right or tell me
No,
if I'm wrong.
I think you're right on. You're right on. And I like to think of premotor focusing as a place to rest back and down. Not like, oh, there was a moment of premotor focusing. I better get another one of those. But more like resting, resting in that space, like coming back to that, getting to know it, and allowing it to hold all the, everything that Thich Nhat Hanh said. It's okay. This is okay. That's okay. Everything's okay. So yeah, you got it, Marilyn.
Well, for the moment.
For the moment.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed the talk. It's going to provide some food for the grist mill up here. So much.
Anyone else? All righty.
I would just like to say thank you. Harada Seki talks about zazen and movement and zazen and stillness, and work can be zazen and movement. Just kind of melding with that activity, being one with that activity, and I think that's a very important part of practice. I myself got into this whole thing through a yoga practice, and being able to stay still in a posture that kind of brings up a lot of stuff, and then sitting down on the cushion is the same form of or a different form of the same thing. So thank you for bringing this.
Yeah, I concur, Dozen. Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? All right, so I'm supposed to make announcements. We have. So we just had a small Caring for the Land event. A couple people came and helped out, and we pulled honeysuckle out of the ground and disposed of it. And anyway, place is looking a little trimmer than usual. Later today, we have 14 people coming for the Just Sitting retreat. And they're going to be here until next Sunday. And the Just Sitting thing is something that started a couple of years ago. Lee Lewis and Bill Tresh had this idea of a Zazen retreat with no talks, no work period, only sitting or walking or napping, but mindfully and in silence. And so that's what they do. And so they like it. They're coming a couple times a year, and they keep coming back. These people, they like to just sit, and that's going on. And then a week later, we had the women's retreat coming up, and I know some of you are going to be there, and there are 21 women signed up for the retreat. So we're going to have a full house, and I get to cook again this year and make sure I don't run out of food these meals, get everybody fed. Anyway, it's been kind of a busy time. We also have a big remodeling project that's going on down at the workshop. We are upgrading our staff facilities down there. We're actually giving them plumbing, flush toilets, hot and cold running water, a small kitchen of their own. Yeah, they're thrilled about it. And the same people that built the buildings are doing the work for us down there. It's going to be really nice. It's been quite consuming to empty out the workshop. Any of you who've been to Hokyoji and have seen the workshop, you know what kind of deal that was, but we've made great progress. So it's been a really nice spring. We've had the healing retreat, the brain body yoga group from Minnetonka is coming 3 times a year for a 3-day weekends. They really enjoy their time here and they keep coming back. Well, it's nice picking up these new friends. We also have, many of you may have not have heard of the Wim Hof method of training. And it's basically a kind of a cold weather training. And they run around half dressed in the wintertime and take ice baths. And it's all about weakening the control of the autonomic nervous system by stressing out with cold temperature. And the hope is that it reduces reactivity by this downplaying of the autonomic nervous system. Anyway, it's quite interesting and popular, and those guys are coming like 3 times a year for weekend retreats. So lots of things going on down here. Let me see. Who is talking? Jushin, do you know who's talking next week?
Yeah, Dokai.
Dokai is talking. Well, Dokai, he was in Ecuador for a month and a half, something like that, a month. And while he was there this spring, his last remaining family member, his sister, who had a stroke last year, passed away. And he's down in Kansas City dealing with her apartment and her car and her belongings and all of that stuff. But he's doing well. But it was his last family member, and he's the sole survivor now. And that's always a challenge, I think, for us to adjust to. Anyway, thanks for coming. Let's close out with the 4 vows. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is surpassable. I vow to realize it. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.